I guess it all started with a guitar. Yeah, a guitar. Funny how something so simple can change your life, right? I was 29 when I decided to finally learn how to play. I always loved music, but never had the time or courage to pick up an instrument. So there I was, walking into this local music shop for my first lesson, feeling like a kid on his first day of school. That's when I saw her, Laura. She was sitting there, strumming away like she was born with a guitar in her hands. Her laugh filled the room as she joked with the instructor. I remember thinking, wow, I hope I can play like that someday. As luck would have it, or maybe it was fate playing its own tune, we ended up in the same beginner's class. Laura had been playing for a while, but wanted to brush up on the basics, or as she put it, I was fumbling with the strings and she just made it look so easy. After class, she came up to me. "Hey, I'm Laura," she said, flashing this smile that could light up a room. "You look like you were having a bit of trouble there. Want to grab a coffee and I can show you a few tricks?" I mean, how could I say no? We ended up talking for hours at this little cafe down the street. She was so vivacious, you know? The way she talked about music, her eyes sparkling with passion. It was infectious. I found myself hanging on her every word. We started meeting up before classes, practicing together. She'd guide my fingers on the fretboard, and I swear, every time she touched my hand, it was like electricity. Weeks turned into months, and somewhere between G chords and Beatles covers, I fell hard. Our first date wasn't even really a date. We were practicing late one night, and I finally worked up the courage to play her a song I'd written. It was probably terrible, but the way she looked at me when I finished, man, I'll never forget that. She leaned in and kissed me, and it felt like every love song I'd ever heard suddenly made sense. After that, we were inseparable. Music became our thing, you know? We'd spend weekends at small gigs, her cheering me on as I slowly got better. We even started writing songs together. It felt like we were composing our own love story, note by note. 6 months in, I proposed. Yeah, I know it was fast, but when you know, right? I did it after one of our performances at a local bar, got down on one knee right there on the tiny stage, guitar still strapped to my back. The whole place erupted in cheers when she said yes. We got married a year later. It was a small ceremony, but it was perfect. We even played a duet for our first dance. Looking back, I guess that's when the music started to change. But in that moment, holding her in my arms, strumming our song, I thought our harmony would last forever. Funny how life plays its own tunes, huh? If only I'd known then what was coming. But I guess that's getting ahead of the story. For now, let's just say that sometimes the sweetest melodies can lead to the harshest discords. For 6 years, I lived in a blissful bubble, thinking I had the perfect marriage. But life has a way of shattering illusions, doesn't it? It was just another Tuesday. Laura was out with her friends and I was home early from work. I remember thinking I'd surprise her by making dinner. Ironic, isn't it? I ended up being the one surprised. I needed a recipe I'd saved on our shared cloud account. Laura's laptop was on the coffee table, so I figured I'd just use that. As I opened the browser, her WhatsApp web popped up. I wasn't trying to snoop, honestly, but then I saw a message preview from a name I recognized. Tony, one of my closest friends. "Last night was amazing, babe. Can't wait to see you again." My heart stopped. I felt like I couldn't breathe. With shaking hands, I scrolled up the messages. God, the messages. Explicit details, secret meetups, inside jokes. It wasn't just a one-time thing. This had been going on for months. But Tony wasn't the only name I recognized. There were others, colleagues, acquaintances, even strangers. 2 years. She'd been doing this for 2 years. I don't know how long I sat there staring at that screen. It felt like hours. The front door opening snapped me back to reality. Laura walked in, all smiles, like nothing was wrong, like she hadn't just destroyed our entire world. "Hey, honey, you're home early," she said, leaning in for a kiss. I flinched away. She noticed the laptop then, her eyes widening as she realized what I'd seen. "John, I can explain," she started, but I cut her off. "Explain what, Laura? How you've been sleeping with half the town behind my back? How you've made a fool of me for years?" My voice was shaking. I'd never felt so angry, so betrayed. She tried to deny it at first, claimed I was misunderstanding things, that the messages were taken out of context. But as I quoted them back to her, her lies crumbled. Finally, she broke down. "I'm sorry, John. I never meant to hurt you. It just happened. It just happened for 2 years with multiple men. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Why, Laura? Was I not enough? Did our marriage mean nothing to you? Her response chilled me to the bone. I love you, John. I do, but I got bored. You're so predictable, so safe. I needed excitement. In that moment, it was like I was seeing her for the first time. This wasn't the woman I fell in love with. This was a stranger wearing my wife's face. I left that night, stayed at Mark's place. Poor guy had no idea his best friend had been sleeping with my wife. He was devastated when I told him. The next few weeks were a blur of pain and anger. Laura alternated between begging for forgiveness and blaming me for driving her to cheat. She'd cry, saying she'd change, that we could work it out. Then, when that didn't work, she'd threaten to take everything in the divorce. It was like living in a nightmare. The woman I thought I knew, the life we'd built together, it was all a lie. Every memory was tainted. Even our music, the thing that brought us together, felt poisoned. I filed for divorce a month later. As I signed those papers, I realized something. The music in my life had stopped, and I had no idea how to get it back. The divorce, God, where do I even begin? You know, they say breaking up is hard to do, but let me tell you, divorcing a narcissist, that's a whole different ballgame. At first, Laura tried to play the repentant wife. She'd show up at my apartment. I had moved out of our house, couldn't stand being there anymore, with tears in her eyes, begging for another chance. She'd bring my favorite meals, play our songs on her guitar. It was like watching a performance, you know? I could almost see the wheels turning in her head, trying to figure out which buttons to push. When that didn't work, she switched tactics. Suddenly, I was the bad guy. She started telling our friends that I was controlling, that I'd driven her to cheat. Can you believe that? She even tried to convince my parents that I had anger issues. Thank God they knew better. The legal battles were exhausting. Laura fought tooth and nail for everything, our house, our savings, even my guitar collection. Her lawyer was this shark of a woman who seemed to take personal pleasure in trying to tear me apart. Every mediation session felt like walking into a lion's den. But you know what? In a weird way, those battles gave me strength. Every time Laura or her lawyer tried to paint me as the villain, I stood my ground. I started remembering who I was before all this. A good guy who didn't deserve what happened to him. Mark was my rock through all of this. Poor guy felt so guilty about Tony's involvement, even though it wasn't his fault. He'd come over with beer and pizza, let me rant and rave, or just sit in silence when that's what I needed. He even helped me find a great therapist who specialized in dealing with narcissistic abuse. Therapy was, well, it was hard. Facing the reality of my marriage, recognizing the red flags I'd missed, it felt like ripping open a wound every session. But slowly, I started to heal. I began to see how Laura had manipulated me over the years, how she chipped away at my self-esteem so gradually I hadn't even noticed. The turning point came about 4 months into the divorce proceedings. I was at home going through some old boxes when I found my old guitar, the one I'd been learning on when I first met Laura. I hadn't played in months. My fingers felt clumsy on the strings, but as I started strumming, something inside me shifted. I played for hours that night. Old songs, new songs, and anything that came to mind. For the first time since discovering Laura's betrayal, I felt free. The music that had been silenced for so long came flooding back. The next day, I called my lawyer and told her to end this. I didn't care about the house or the money anymore. I just wanted out. It took another 2 months of negotiations, but finally, it was done. I walked out of that courtroom with nothing but my guitars and my dignity, and honestly, that felt like more than enough. That night, I sat on the tiny balcony of my new apartment, guitar in hand, and played until the sun came up. As I watched the sky turn from black to pink to blue, I realized something. This wasn't an ending. It was a beginning. The start of a new song, one that was all mine. I'd lost a lot, sure, but as I sat there, fingers sore from playing all night, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. The divorce symphony was over, but my own melody, that was just getting started. You know, they say when one door closes, another opens. But in my case, it wasn't so much a door as a window, and through it came the most unexpected person. It had been about a year since the divorce was finalized. I was slowly piecing my life back together, focusing on my career, my music, and healing. The last thing on my mind was another relationship. Then Sarah walked into my life. I'd met Sarah before, of course. She was Laura's younger sister, but they were never close. I remember her at our wedding, standing off to the side, looking uncomfortable. She'd always seemed different from Laura, quieter, more thoughtful. It was at a mutual friend's birthday party that we really talked for the first time. I almost didn't go. The thought of facing people who knew about the divorce was daunting. But Mark convinced me it would be good for me. I was hanging back, nursing a beer, when Sarah approached me. "Hey, John," she said with a small smile. "How are you holding up?" There was something in her voice, genuine concern, not the fake sympathy I'd grown used to. Before I knew it, we were deep in conversation. She told me how sorry she was about what Laura had done, how she'd tried to talk to her sister, but Laura wouldn't listen. "I always knew there was something off about Laura," Sarah confided. "Growing up with her wasn't easy. She always had to be the center of attention, always had to win. I was just the annoying little sister she could manipulate or ignore." As she spoke, I saw a flicker of old pain in her eyes. It mirrored my own, and in that moment, I felt a connection I wasn't expecting. We started meeting for coffee after that. At first, it was just to talk about the divorce, about Laura. Sarah provided insights into Laura's behavior that helped me make sense of things. But soon our conversations expanded. We talked about our dreams, our fears, our favorite books and movies. I found myself looking forward to our meetups more and more. One day, about 3 months after we started hanging out, Sarah invited me to a small acoustic gig she was doing at a local cafe. I hadn't known she played. Apparently, it was something she'd kept private from her family. Watching her on that tiny stage, pouring her heart into her music, I felt something stir inside me. Her voice was haunting, her lyrics raw and honest. It was like seeing a kindred spirit, someone who understood the power of music to heal. After her set, I congratulated her and on impulse asked if she wanted to collaborate sometime. The smile that lit up her face made my heart skip a beat. We started writing songs together, meeting at my apartment or hers, guitars in hand. There was an ease to our creative process that I'd never experienced before, not even with Laura. Sarah understood my musical ideas intuitively, and her own contributions were brilliant. It was during one of these sessions, about 6 months after we'd reconnected, that everything changed. We were working on a particularly emotional song, our guitars perfectly in sync. As the last chord faded, I looked up and caught Sarah's eye. The air between us seemed to crackle with electricity. Before I knew what was happening, we were kissing. It was tender and passionate all at once, like the culmination of something that had been building for months. When we finally pulled apart, I felt a mix of elation and panic. "Sarah," I said, my voice shaky, I don't know if this is a good idea. You're Laura's sister, and I'm still..." She put a finger to my lips, silencing me. "John," she said softly, "I'm not Laura, and you're not the same man you were when you were with her. We're two people who understand each other, who make each other happy. Isn't that worth exploring?" As I looked into her eyes, I realized she was right. This wasn't about Laura anymore. This was about two people who had found something special, unexpected, and beautiful. That night marked the beginning of something new, a new relationship, a new chapter in my life. It wasn't always easy. We both had our scars, our fears, but with Sarah, for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was exactly where I was meant to be. Falling in love with Sarah was like learning to breathe again after being underwater for so long. It wasn't something we planned, but sometimes the best things in life catch you by surprise. As our relationship grew, so did our music. We started performing together at local venues, our voices and guitars blending in a way that felt almost magical. People would come up to us after shows, telling us how our songs touched them. It was incredible, sharing that connection not just with Sarah, but with our audience too. About a year into our relationship, I knew I wanted to spend the rest of my life with her. The idea of marriage didn't scare me anymore. With Sarah, it felt right. I proposed during one of our performances, right there on stage. I'd written a special song for her, and as I played the last chord, I got down on one knee. The look on her face, surprise, joy, love, it's something I'll never forget. But of course, life has a way of throwing curveballs. When news of our engagement spread, it was like opening Pandora's box. Laura, who had been relatively quiet since the divorce, suddenly came roaring back into our lives. She started calling Sarah at all hours, alternating between tearful pleas to not steal her sister's husband and vicious threats. She'd show up at our gigs, causing scenes. Once she even tried to climb on stage and grab the mic from Sarah. It was tough on Sarah, tougher than she let on at first. One night, after a particularly nasty encounter with Laura, she broke down in my arms. "Maybe we're making a mistake," she sobbed. "Maybe I'm just hurting my sister." I held her close, my heart breaking for the pain she was going through. "Sarah," I said gently, "your sister hurt herself and both of us. We found happiness together, and that's not wrong. We can't let Laura control our lives." Those words seemed to strengthen her resolve. We decided to move forward with our wedding plans, despite Laura's attempts to sabotage them. We chose a small, intimate ceremony, just close friends and family. Sarah's parents were supportive, although I could see the conflict in their eyes. They loved both their daughters and were caught in the middle of the storm. As the wedding day approached, Laura's antics escalated. She tried to cancel our venue reservations, sent nasty emails to our guests, and even threatened to show up and object during the ceremony. It was stressful, to say the least. The night before the wedding, Sarah and I sat on the balcony of our apartment, guitars in hand. We played softly, our music a buffer against the chaos around us. As we finished a song, Sarah turned to me, her eyes shining with determination. "No matter what happens tomorrow," she said, "I want you to know that I love you, John. We've been through so much, and we'll get through whatever comes next together." Her words filled me with a sense of peace and certainty. Whatever Laura might try, she couldn't touch what Sarah and I had built together. The wedding day dawned bright and clear. As I stood at the altar, watching Sarah walk down the aisle, all my worries melted away. She was radiant, her smile lighting up the whole room. In that moment, it was just us, our love, our music, our future. We said our vows, exchanged rings, and sealed our union with a kiss. And you know what? Laura never showed up. Maybe she finally realized she couldn't win, or maybe she'd found a shred of decency. Either way, her absence was the best wedding gift she could have given us. As Sarah and I danced our first dance as husband and wife, I felt a sense of completion I'd never experienced before. This was it. The love I'd always hoped for, the partnership I'd always dreamed of. 10 years after marrying Sarah, I found myself back in that little music shop where it all began. Only this time, I wasn't the nervous student fumbling with guitar strings. I was the teacher. And my student was our 9-year-old daughter, Melody. Yeah, we named her Melody. Cheesy, I know, but it felt right. She's the perfect blend of Sarah and me. She's got Sarah's quiet thoughtfulness and my passion for music. Watching her tiny fingers struggle with the frets, I couldn't help but smile, remembering my own beginnings. Our life together hasn't always been easy, but it's been beautiful. Sarah and I continued to make music, even touring a bit, when Melody was younger. We'd pack up our old van, strap Melody into her car seat, and hit the road, playing small venues across the country. Those were some of the best times of my life, sharing our music with audiences, then coming back to the hotel to cuddle with our little girl. As for Laura, well, she's still a part of our story, even if it's a complicated one. She stayed away for a few years after the wedding, but when Melody was born, something changed. She reached out asking to meet her niece. Sarah and I were wary at first, but we decided to give her a chance. It was tense, that first meeting. Laura held Melody awkwardly, like she wasn't quite sure what to do with a baby. But as Melody gurgled and grabbed at her aunt's necklace, I saw something soften in Laura's eyes. It was like she was seeing a piece of herself in this tiny human. Over the years, Laura has become a part of Melody's life. It's not perfect. There are still moments of awkwardness, times when old hurts resurface. But she's trying, and that counts for something. She's not the same person who broke my heart all those years ago. Time and therapy have changed her, just as they've changed me. Watching Laura with Melody has been healing in a way I never expected. Seeing her genuinely care for someone other than herself, seeing her try to be a better person for her niece, it's helped me let go of some of the anger I'd been holding on to. Sarah's been amazing through it all. Her capacity for forgiveness, her ability to see the best in people, it never ceases to amaze me. She's the one who encouraged me to let Laura be a part of Melody's life, who helped me see that holding on to bitterness would only hurt us in the long run. Our marriage isn't perfect. No marriage is. We've had our share of arguments and rough patches, but at the end of the day, we always come back to each other, to our music. We still write songs together, still perform occasionally. Our styles have evolved over the years, mellowing like a fine wine. The raw pain that fueled some of our earlier songs has been replaced by a deeper, more nuanced understanding of life and love. As I sit here in this music shop, watching Melody's face scrunch up in concentration as she tries to play a C chord, I feel a sense of peace wash over me. The journey that brought me here wasn't easy. There were moments of heartbreak so deep I thought I'd never recover. But looking at my daughter, thinking of Sarah waiting for us at home, I know that every step of that journey was worth it. Life is like a song, you know? It has its high notes and low notes, its moments of harmony and discord. But it's in the blending of all these elements that true beauty emerges. And as I help Melody adjust her fingers on the fretboard, I realize that's exactly what we've created. A beautiful, complex, imperfect harmony. The music shop owner catches my eye and gives me a knowing smile. He remembers me from all those years ago, remembers the young man I was and the journey I've been on. As Melody finally nails the chord and looks up at me with a triumphant grin, I can't help but think, this is it. This is the sweetest melody of all.